e-IRG workshop. Thanks for coming and to have you here for the e-IRG workshop in our second day during the Spanish presidency. First of all, thank you, Ignacio, and your team, which is very helpful and made everything possible that we can meet here at this very impressive research performing organization and have enough space to have very fruitful discussions today. And I'm opening now the session 3, which is session 2. Here I'm in session 3. Sorry, wrong. I'm opening session 3. For doing so, just to remind you, we have housekeeping rules because we have a lot of people also coming from outside virtually. So as I said yesterday, the sessions will be recorded also to have a very ground basis to generate our communique afterwards and to do not miss any comment, which is, I think, very valuable for our statements at the end. So when you're not when you're coming from outside and you're not talking, please do not activate your microphone. This helps a lot in the for techniques, and we will have to be rather strict on the timing. Please also consider this because otherwise we run out of time. And please also make use of the survey for a feedback on the agenda. It also helps us to generate, let's say, good results then. You can comment also on Twitter. This is, I think, something which is also worth mentioning it, so that we can really have all our comments there, and also give feedback to the secretariat via mail. If you want to do it in written form, this also helps very much. This gives me the possibility also to remind you on our group, and the infrastructure reflection group has a very clear vision and mission. So the vision is that we want to facilitate the integration in the area of European infrastructures and connected services, which does not exclude, of course, research infrastructures in general, within and between the member states at the European level and, of course, globally. The mission is also very clear. We want to support a coherent and innovative strategic European infrastructure policymaking. And we are also supporting the development of convergent and sustainable e-infrastructure services, where most of you are involved in. This brings me to our, let's say, main core objective, which is something which has been elaborated years ago. It is the infrastructure commons. And the infrastructure commons is the political and technological, as well as administrative framework for an easy and cost-effective shared use of distributed electronic resources across Europe, as it was stated then. And it is still highly actual. The e-IRG outlines in Europe's need for a single e-infrastructure common for knowledge, innovation, and science. This is dated back in 2012. e-IRG stresses the need for e-infrastructure coordination at the national level, of course, and strong national building blocks, enabling at the end a coherent and effective participation in European efforts. This was dated back in 2016. and the role of national nodes in the implementation of the infrastructure commons and its instantaneous and European open science cloud connection is also an integrative part. So it was right from the beginning part of our infrastructure commons. e-IRG addresses the good practices of coordination within and across infrastructures and thematic research infrastructures. This was a more recent statement in the white paper of 21. Last but not least, the e-IRG thematizes the coordination among European infrastructures and the need for collaboration in various levels to realize the concept of the e-IRG infrastructure commons and its instantaneous installation as the European Open Science Cloud, which was part of the white paper in 2022. Having this in mind, I want to thank, as I did it yesterday, especially the program committee, which made a lot of efforts and did a lot of work to make also this agenda possible with our distinguished speakers. I will start with Ignacio Blanquer from, he's our Spanish chair and also hosting today this meeting. I wanted to mention Christy Love, our Belgian delegate, Panos Akayakis, who is of course always around and always helpful with doing everything here. Paolo Bodroni, the Austrian delegate and former chair of e-IRG. Then there's me, of course, as a chair, part of this group. I also want to mention especially Volker Beckmann from France, which is always active. Jan Wibelitz, who is one of our backbones here and also a member of the secretariat, as Fotis Katayanis, who is let's say one of the backbones, as I said before, of the e-IRG activities since a long time. Then there's Michael Maragakis, who was part of the support program and is always with us and organizing nearly everything with regards to the organization here. And last but not least, Bernd Sauruger, who is also part of the support, or was part of the support office and still is helping very, very intensively. Just to give you a repetition, the session 1 was focusing on infrastructures for strengthening the European unity. Today we will come to session 2, skills in the frame of e-infrastructures. And maybe here I'll head over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks for moderating the rest of the morning session. Thank you.
Okay, Stefan. Maybe the next slides. What we will discuss today at this session, it's of course about skills, digital skills. We are the infrastructure reflection group. That means also that we the market. Okay. So I don't know if I have to repeat this, but Thank you for the mic. We will discuss now with the speakers the trends, the technology trends on what a data steward or a data manager needs to know. So we discussed already a long time about certain skills, but certainly in the evolution of e-infrastructures, we need a specific kind of skills. And so we have also the development of artificial intelligence. We have also the importance of data analytics. So somewhere the newcomers, new people that will be not created, but will be taught to be a data steward, they have to know exactly which direction they have to go. And so we have to define some way a path to that development. It will be, I think, a European development, but we cannot do that without political support, without funding, without also the research funding agencies and also the libraries. So that's why it's important that we have now some speakers that will tell us their experiences on what they think is important to raise that awareness, the awareness of the digital skills in the frame of the e-infrastructures. So the objective is also to have at the end some policies to influence then research funding agencies and also political players to have more attention to the curricula of the next generation of data stewards and data managers. So let me present also the experts that will give some insights. I cannot see the screen from here, but okay. So I will not yet introduce, but just give the agenda. Who will speak now and who is waiting, I will say, to give some presentation and some of its insight. So we will have Anders Inerman. Anders Inerman, he was the keynote of this session. Then we have also Karel Leuben. He will speak. You know, Karel Leuben is also the president of the e-IRG Association. So he now will speak in function of the CSER. So the organization that is regrouping the universities, the research performing organizations. We have also Gilles Vincian. It's somebody who will represent the European University Association, also an association grouping research performing organizations. We also have Helen Claire, who will speak in name of the e-IRG Association Task Force on Skills. We have Nuria Benitez. She is coming from SOMA. It's, I think, the Spanish organization. And then we also want to have some insights in what is happening also on the national field. So we invited some national players. They will not speak, I will say, in the general, generic European terms, but they will give an insight on what could and what should happen also in their country. We have Ines, invited Ines Vodopives. She's from NUK, the National Library of Slovenia. She will speak about the Slovenian case. And we have also invited Ignacy Libastida Iguan, and he will speak about the Spanish case. So I think we did a round of all the speakers. At the end, we have some panel discussion with all the speakers. Also, you in the audience, you can raise your questions. We have also some questions. It's interesting because we want to have a good image about the needs and also the way forward to have the digital skills raised and a new generation of data stewards prepared. So now, if everything is well, I will introduce Anders Inerman. He will give a talk on visual intelligence, the human interface to data and intelligence systems. Maybe, Anders, you can begin and also present yourself 30 seconds. Thank you, Anders.
All right. Can you all hear me? Yes, we can.
Very good. Let's see if I can also share my screen with you. So here we go. Okay. And I hope my screen is visible to all of you. So I can get a thumbs up from anyone. That'd be good. All right. Very good. Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to the e-IRG. As some of you know, I was also a very early member of the organization back in the early 2000s, and contributed with some of the insights from the supercomputing and great background that I had back then. But I have since moved on and still remain to some extent in the supercomputing business, but also focusing a lot on data analysis and heading research programs in Sweden and visualization efforts on my own research side. So, but there's some information about me. So what I'm going to try to do in the minutes that I have been allocated here is to talk to you a little bit about the changes that we're seeing in terms of the introduction of higher level of abstractions in the scientific workflow and how that is influencing infrastructures, and in particular, of course, the introduction, as we are all so aware of, artificial intelligence and how that is affecting us to a very large degree at this point in the scientific community. Let me take as a starting point this sort of the confluence, the convergence that we're seeing of the various modalities of data generation that we're seeing. It's not only the computing fabric that we're looking at the experimental fabric, we're looking at the data that's now being processed and turned into increasingly intelligent services as well. So this is sort of a very interesting time to look at these issues and the role of infrastructures in this disruptive change that we're seeing in society. But I also wanted to give you a little bit of a framework on where I am coming from and what's happening in Sweden. And I know that this is also something that is happening on the European level to a large extent. But as some of you may have heard of, we have just recently introduced a new infrastructure for computing in Sweden. It's a very nice infrastructure, pun intended here. It stands for the National Academic Infrastructure for Supercomputing in Sweden. The interesting thing about this infrastructure is that it's a hybrid infrastructure. And as I sometimes say, it was due for Sweden to move into this century by actually focusing hardware operations to one site. But at the same time, make use of the possibility to distribute user support and the skills that are needed to conduct scientific discovery. So it's a hybrid model where we are looking at nodes and nodal structure, and you will see this is one of the themes that I will talk about, is the introduction of the nodal structure and how we are how that is affecting us to a large extent. So my home university and the organization, I was the director of the Supercomputer Center back in the 1990s and built up some of those infrastructures. This is going to be the home of the new national infrastructure in Sweden, which is an exciting time for all of us, of course. Now, my other role in the system is to head a program called WASP, and it stands for the Wallenberg AI Autonomous Systems and Software Program. And this is one of the new things that we are being injected into the infrastructure fabric. We have a new generation of very talented people who have previously not been so interested in infrastructure aspects, but coming from the autonomous systems, the software development, and also from AI, of course, we are now seeing an influx of users of infrastructures to a very large extent that we haven't seen before. This program is by far the largest research program ever in the history in Sweden, with the budget of 6.2 billion Swedish kroners, and with the ambition to graduate more than 600 PhDs. And a large fraction of my time right now is to manage this program. And currently we are examining 1 PhD per week coming out of this program, and many of them are relying on infrastructure. And we're doing a large number of recruitments as well. So as a part of this program, we felt the need to provide all of these young, talented researchers that we are generating in new domains. We felt the need to strengthen the infrastructure, in particular the infrastructure for artificial intelligence. So the Wallenberg Foundation decided to allocate a significant amount of funding to invest in a supercomputing infrastructure targeting AI computing. And this is actually one of the resources that I will dig into just a little bit and draw some conclusions out of what's happening within this domain. The machine itself is of course not the most important thing. It's how we use it and how we access that machine and how that is affecting us in the terms of support that we need to provide to future users of large-scale AI and machine learning infrastructures. And just as for a slight entertainment, here's a picture of the machine itself at the day of the opening with the Wallenberg Foundation representatives, and Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, was also attending this very nice event. Now, what I really wanted to talk about is how do we use this machine? And I will give you 3 examples, and then we'll discuss those 3 examples and see what is it that is changing. Now, it's being used to a very large degree to things that previously have not been introduced in supercomputing as much. It's looking at computer vision, segmentation work, video tracking, all of those things that have been one of the strengths of a country like Sweden for many years. But it's going into the domain of machine learning, and machine learning is taking over computer vision to a very large degree. So this is one of the main uses of this machine. Another use area is in biology, and we're looking at protein folding. And we have people doing novel things to things like the AlphaFold framework that's out there, and I'm sure you're all aware of this from DeepMind and the things. But they're users of that particular framework that has been developed by an external actor like DeepMind. Okay, but they do amazing stuff with this, and it's being and the machine is heavily loaded with these kinds of problems. And of course, a no-brainer in this is the language models. The machine is being used to a very large degree for training language models. And we have a Nordic language model that we have trained, GPT 3.5, with 175 billion parameters, and it's targeting the Nordic languages. And of course, this is good for us to have. It's not state of the art compared to what's happening, for instance in OpenAI. But it's definitely something that is open, it's transparent, we know exactly how it has been trained, and we can use it for academic research and also for users that are relying on this kind of transparency and openness. So so here you have 3 different cases. What is it about these 3 cases that I'm so interested in analyzing the skill sets that are needed here, and which is the topic of today. Now, if you look at the load on this machine, currently, the load is primarily single GPU jobs. And these are the jobs that are coming from all of those users, like the computer vision people, that are used to having their single GPUs sitting under their desk. And a fraction at this point, is the larger jobs that come from the language models, from the protein folding. So essentially, looking at this graph here, you see this is a very inefficient use of an extremely expensive supercomputer that scales to very large-scale jobs. So here's a new problem that we have in terms of skill sets. We need to develop the skills to help users of machine learning to take their research software and make it scale to the big problems, because we have a very competitive situation with researchers who have access to, in big tech, in the companies, big tech, to very large scale projects that are really going for the big problems. If the academic world is going to compete, we need to have a massive effort in terms of training and in terms of skills when it comes to scaling machine learning jobs to make use of these resources that are generally available at this point. So this is one of my first items that I wanted to bring up. Now, How do we do this? And here comes another of those issues that I wanted to bring up. And this it's a triangle that we've been using in the Swedish e-science research community for quite some time, and it still holds. And in particular, in view of what I just said, because if you look at the users of machine learning, you look at the core IT researchers that could potentially help out in doing this, and you look at the application experts that are embedded inside the infrastructures. At this point, we are looking at a lot at this kind of exchanges. And of course, those incentive mechanisms that should be there for the core IT researchers to help people in the application areas is not there. And we've been trying to get this triangle to work for many, many years. And this side of the triangle with the red arrow back and forth is generally not working very well. So of course, what we do is that we connect traditionally, we connect the users with the application experts, the engineers, the people that are in these communities that we are going to hear more about later on today as well. But what we really need to work on is the bottom arrow. We need to work on how do we connect the research groups, because what you can see here in this domain, in AI and in machine learning, we talk about technology readiness levels in many cases. If you look at this domain, you can forget about this, because things are moving so fast from research, from new findings, new ways of doing machine learning to the application. We're talking about months, sometimes even weeks. So we really need to have a very rapid migration of research results on machine learning and AI straight into the support structure that we need to have to support the users to make use of these new methods and findings that are coming out. So if you look at this, the changes that we're seeing, we really have the user, we have the machine, and we have a gap. So to really make this synergy happen between the human brain and the computer, we need to have some actions in terms of training, in terms of raising the general awareness of possibilities, limitations. If we look at the particular domain of visual data analysis, which is of course my own core domain at this point, this is the scientific workflow in visual data analysis, and you can see we have simulations, we have computation, we have archives, and we have sensors and agents, and we're looking at very large data flows. And of course, we use the data processing to reduce that, reduce the petabits per second down to gigabits per second, which is of course what we humans like, because that's an image or a stream of video that you're looking at this point, which is then reduced down to megabits per second that we look at for insight, decision, and planning. How is this being changed now with the introduction of new, more sophisticated tools? There are basically 3 different places inside of this chain where we are seeing disruptive changes on how we conduct this work. We look at the feedback of image control that we do in the past. We look at the human feedback to the data processing. We look at the human feedback to the actual generation of the data. All of these processes are now being changed. We are seeing the introduction of artificial intelligence and machine learning in the actual decision-making process for the user. But we're also seeing feedback loops that are appearing inside of the decision chain. And this is fundamentally changing the kind of abstraction levels, the metaphors that we are using to deal with the data. And it's going very, very fast. Even to the point when AI is also changing the generation of the data. And it's a moving target. Things are happening on a weekly basis. And this is where we need to spend a lot of time. Now, the reason why we introduced infrastructures that could potentially deal with this problem in a slightly better way, and an example of this is the InfraVis infrastructure, which is the first example in Sweden of an infrastructure that consists entirely of humans. It's only human expertise and skills in the infrastructure. So, and to make that happen, and the bottom arrow in the triangle that I just showed, we have embedded the experts, the application experts, are embedded inside of the research units that we see have particular knowledge and competence in these domains that are needed. So we have 9 nodes in a distributed structure that with a coordinated help desk, with coordinated training efforts, but really with a proximity to both users and the research groups to really close the loop inside of the triangle that we're looking at. This is just for visualization. But if I now generalize and see what changes are going on in terms of the needed skills, we're probably looking at something that I sort of tentatively called Infra X for science infrastructure. Again, a human infrastructure, but contains that sort of new and wider set of skills required to help out with large-scale machine learning and AI deployment, putting the human in the loop at a level which you have not done in the past. Look at the tools that are coming out for collection and curation. Machine learning is phenomenal when it comes to data curation, but also the more traditional ways of looking at this. But one component that we really need to think about and how we introduce that in the workflow of the scientists is the regulatory aspects, which is an extremely complicated topic, and so much stuff is happening at so many different levels, and I'm sure we will hear more about this today as well. Now, I promised to keep this presentation rather short, but I just wanted to show you one example of how this scientific workflow is changing very, very rapidly. Now, in just a few weeks, together with some of the graduate students and some of my international collaborators, we put together what we call AI-enabled conversations, with the possibility to train systems to not only talk to you in the language model, but also show you things, show you visualizations, to train the system to have a pilot that's aware of the content in the visual representation of your data. But also an encyclopedia that knows about the data and can generate text responses to queries. And of course, a visualization and a voice interaction with this. Now, just to give you a flavor of this, and I hope this carries across, so let me just play back a short video indicating what this could potentially look like. So here's an AI-enabled conversation with a visual representation of data that has been collected of a coronavirus. So when I press the button here, our graduate student Alexandra is going to start talking to the virus, and the virus will respond and talk about itself. So let me see.
Take me to the RNA.
Then let's go to RNA together.
Can I see it from the side?
Okay, we can look at it from a different side.
How does the envelope protein look like?
Okay, got it. Here is what I know about it. The envelope protein of SARS-CoV-2, known as the spike protein, forms a prominent structure on the viral surface, interacting with fluid lipid membranes to facilitate its entry into host cells.
I hope that carried across to you, and that Zoom managed to show you this without dropping too many frames. And you see this kind of communication and the explanation that's going on. It's a tool for scientific discovery to some extent, but also for communication. How scientists are communicating their results by using these kinds of representations and interaction schemes. Now, so as a conclusion to this talk, I would just say that the scientific discovery workflow is really changing very rapidly. It's changing in ways that we are using new ways of reducing data flows, but at the same time lowering the cognitive load. We are raising the level of abstraction in the presented results, and we are enabling extremely advanced interfaces. Even to the point that the new budding community, AI for Science, is talking about the possibility for an AI system to win the Nobel Prize by the year 2050. And what kind of award structure should we have for that? This is not science fiction. It's happening, and it's happening very, very rapidly. Now, I had a little bit of a demonstration here towards the end, but I think what I will do is open up for potential questions, and I was asked to leave time for that. So I would really like to hear your comments and questions on this. And if we run out of questions, I can also show you a very nice visualization of a brain. All right.
Okay, thank you, Anders. It was very interesting, and I have also a question, but I will leave the floor to others. I think there are others that want to have to raise some questions. I don't know if somebody is following the chat or following the questions. So there are no questions, others, or I leave you with the brain. I think this could be very interesting, or I will ask you a really stupid question.
Go ahead.
When I'm looking to your presentation, immediately it's coming up to my mind why we are busy with all those digital skills if artificial intelligence will take it over.
It's a good question, and I think my best answer goes back to the traditional arguing when it comes to chess players. And you know, the best AI systems today are, of course, outperforming the best chess players we have. But if you put a chess player together with the AI system, that chess combination will beat the chess computer. So if you add a human to an AI system, it's always going to be better than the AI system. And this is the experience that still holds. But the communication between the AI system and the user has to be at a different level. We are now looking at the verbal and visual way of communicating with the system, sort of a human-style communication. But there could also be many, many other ways of having that sort of human-machine interface.
Okay, thank you, Anders. If you don't mind, we were a little bit short in time. We have started a little bit later. We will take also the questions and also some other, I will say, inputs to the panel discussion. So we can close this session now with you. Stay online. I think there will be other questions. Oh, there are a couple of questions coming up. So don't leave, Anders.
All right.
Yeah. Yes, Sylvia Giney from SNSF. SNSF. Yeah. How do you anticipate those changes in research and humanities?
I think it's a unique opportunity to bring in the humanities and social science aspects, because there's both a need for us to understand more of implications. Let me take the example of data biases, which is of course a topic for many people in humanities and social science to look at. But to be able to study those topics, they also need access to the algorithms that's generating that synthetic data and the biases that are being introduced. So I think there are many, many opportunities that the social science and also the humanities community can get closer to us. Of course, if you look at things like humanities and you look at language research, of course, the language research is now moving into the computerized domain, and it's extremely exciting to see how language researchers are attacking the large language models and trying to understand and also contribute to language models to a large extent. So in my own research effort that we're looking at languages, we are thinking about hiring a new professor who has a linguistic background to help us out with the next generation of tools.
Okay. Thank you, Anders. There is another question in the chat, but I leave it up to you if you open the chat to answer it directly in the chat.
Sure.
It's about
yeah. Who owns Infravis? It's the Swedish Research Council that's also funding the infrastructure for supercomputing, is the main funding organization for Infravis. It's hosted by one of the partner universities, Chalmers University of Technology in Gothenburg. But each of the nodes are autonomous to some extent, and there's a strong commitment from the hosting universities in those 9 places. But it's an exciting experiment, because to my knowledge, it's the first infrastructure that contains only of human expertise, and we'll see how that works out.
Okay, thank you, Anders. I will close your session now, so we can go to the next speaker. It will be Karel Leuben. He will speak in name of the CISAR. Karel, if you are online, can you begin also with your talk and just for 30 seconds introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm online, and I hope you hear me, and I can start introducing myself. Do you hear me?
Yep. Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. Then let me put my video on full screen. Well, as Chris said, my name is Karel Leiben. I'm the president of the e-IRG Association at the moment, but here today I'm talking on behalf of CESAR. CESAR is the conference of European schools for advanced engineering education and research. And I have been president of CESAR for 4 years and been in the board for 4 years and been the chair of the task force on open science, which has now been converted into a task force on openness of science and technology, as you will hear in the talk. And I will use the Delft University of Technology, my own background, as an example for this talk. Digital and data skills for engineering universities. Of course, they are not specifically different in many aspects, but in some aspects, yes, there are additional requirements or other requirements. First, CESAR, the vision and mission of CESAR is to be the main European point of reference for engineering education, research and innovation at the university level, serving as a network for mutual learning of those universities that are committed to excellence. Contributing to the European developments via dialogue with the EU institutions. I think we have a good position there, and inspiring and reflecting and fostering understanding of the role of engineering in the modern knowledge-based societies, as we have just seen an example of. Then there is the task force, which I mentioned, which is now called the Task Force of Openness of Science and Technology in this network of engineering universities. They work on open science. Their focus is their research data management, working together with the European Open Science Cloud, working on fair data and on open access. But they also work on knowledge, safety, and security. So where we say taking no measures would be naive. So as universities and research performing organizations, we should not be naive, but also we need to prevent that too many and the wrong measures, which could reduce scientific integrity, academic freedom, and institutional autonomy are taken in order, let's say, to protect ourselves too much, which sometimes comes from bureaucrats, if I may call them that way. Then we do work in the domain on citizen science. We're mainly setting that up. And this task force explores an effective two-way engagement, outreach and engagement between members and society at large. Having said that, I move to an example of one of those universities that was there when it's set up, when CESAR was set up a long time ago, I think about almost 40 years ago now. And in the Delft University of Technology, the TU Delft Library, together with the faculty data stewards, have drafted a vision on research data and software management training based on 7 principles, of which I list 5 here. Data and software management training should be built on existing courses there where possible, but also new courses are necessary to deal with the fast changing demand in this research data and software management domain. Researchers should receive the proper incentives to take part and contribute in the training. And in our view, the library and the graduate schools, we have one overarching graduate school for the whole university, and graduate schools per faculty should continuously engage in consultation processes with PhD students and their supervisors. All the material that's been produced by this group for the courses is made available under Creative Commons license for everybody. This is an example. I will not describe this in detail, but the example shows that there are different levels. Introduction, everybody should be aware of the fact that this is important. Then the basics, every PhD student is per definition in their introduction learning about these basics. And then depending on what the PhD students do and the other students do, because this is also for bachelor and master students, we go deeper into RD, research and development and software workflows, or discipline-specific training, as you can see some examples here in the genomics or in the geospatial domain. This research and data software training group is a group that has to work in a collaborative effort. They work with the graduate school that I already mentioned. They work with the education support center that's in the university. They work with the research support units because they as well help in the domain of research directly as data stewards as in the training domain. There's a number of external collaborators where the university is working with, and that helps us in setting all this up. Then there's, of course, the faculty members and the PhD students in the university, a large and important group. We have 2,700 for which we do this. Then there is the ICT and innovation department in the university that, of course, has to contribute with the e-infrastructures they have available and the knowledge they have available. And then there is the Digital or Data Competence Center of Data Stewards. I will show you a picture of the group in a minute, that is brought together in order to support the researchers in their research with data knowledge. Of course, there are the data stewards as well at the level of the faculty, as at the level of the university in the digital competence centers, as at the level of the individual research group, depending, of course, on the type of work the group is doing. And this is all coordinated and run by the research data and software team that does the creation of these courses, that does the provision in order for these courses to take place and help to take place, and that does the coordination of this effort, in this case in the Delft University of Technology as an example. An example of an obligatory course for all the PhD students, the 101 Basics course. It's a blended 3-week course aimed at first year's PhD candidates, as we call them in our university, because the word student doesn't apply always. Most of them are having a salary. After taking this course, participants should be able to realize the importance of good data management for research, to identify the different data types that are relevant for their research projects, to recognize the relevant regulations, policies, and legal requirements for their data. Not simple, especially with all the data acts coming from the European Commission. To list the main components of FAIR data principles and to connect these FAIR data principles to their own research workflow. Afterwards, they can use what they've learned to design an efficient research data management strategy for their own work. Below you can see some links to the work that is being presented there, and from the PDF that is available you can make the link. Every faculty has a data steward at the faculty level. As I said, there are also many data stewards working at the department level, contributing to this central training and the skills, also working on what we call software carpentry, data carpentry for social sciences, genomics data, you name it. And they have been initiating as data stewards at the university, at the faculty level, all this work. Then there is the University Data Competence Centers or Digital Competence Center, contributing to this central training and teaching and helping in the different courses on data and on software. And many of them are instructors themselves in this. Most of our data stewards have a PhD and have let's say, a background training in one of the disciplines, and on top of that, knowledge about data management. And then there is the Research Data Management and Digital Skills Training Group that has especially as a task to train all these PhD students, 2,700 I said, and to work with the data stewards that also help the researchers in their research data management work. Another chapter coming from maybe my other hat, the Skills for e-IRG project, to show the interaction that is taking place between these different approaches from a university in this case and the level at the European scale. The Skills for e-IRG project is an infra e-IRG project financed by the European Commission, aims to map career profiles to open science, so to look at what is minimum viable skill set for a data steward, for a researcher, for different groups, 9 different groups they have identified. And one of the project tasks is to make a European training curriculum for data stewards based on this minimum viable skill set. And as I said, there's a lot of overlap between the things that need to be done across Europe in the different systems. But of course, we cannot top-down decide on a curriculum for data stewards in Europe. It doesn't work this way. Universities even have their own freedom to make their own curricula. But we can help each other and influence each other. So this curriculum will focus on the entry-level data steward or other professionals who carry out data steward work. They're not always called data stewards within their organization, data curators, data librarian, data managers, or RDM coordinators. The final curriculum, as well as the material that will help the trainers to use this curriculum, will be available by the summer of 2025, and the work so far can be found on Zenodo with the link given below. Some conclusions of this short introduction, Chris. The awareness of the need for data and data skills is emerging, but very much needs to be stimulated, as we hear most likely in the other talks as well. These are new and partly discipline-specific skills, so basic training, something like a minimum viable skill set, as well as advanced knowledge for data stewards is important. We think that most of these data stewards should have, for example, a bachelor's in one of the discipline and then data steward skills in their master's, or if they work directly in the group, only have a bachelor's and then start training on the job. The collaboration of those data and software support units in the organizations is taking care of the provision for training, allows scalability and sustainability because it has to be embedded in the normal organization and not an add-on as a project or something like that. So it's relevant that the training provision takes its part in the is part of these roles and the training provision of the university itself. Data stewards from the organization can jointly form a data competence centers, as we have seen in the Delft University of Technology and in all the other universities, by the way, in the Netherlands. But they can also form jointly thematic data competence centers in the country. And linking these data competence centers in countries and across countries will strengthen the backbone in Europe. And a lot of knowledge can be shared. The training materials should be openly available. Within CSR, we do this by the research data management people that form a network through this task force, Openness of Science and Technology. And with that, I would like to conclude and thank you for your attention. I will stop sharing here. Chris, you're muted. We don't hear anything, Chris. You're still muted.
No, it's working. Okay, thank you, Ignacio. That's the hybrid situation.
It's not simple, huh? Hybrid.
It's not simple, of course not. This is the last time from hybrid. No, thank you, Karel. This was an impressive introduction, also from the point of CSR. We have time for one question. So if I see something in the room here, okay. Oh, you may, Ignacio.
Okay, so thank you very much, Karel, for the presentation. Very short question with respect to this RDM one-on-one. Which are the prerequisites for the, for the PhD students? It's open for, do you foresee any skills that should be needed to take the course?
Well, there was one level below, and knowing the awareness. Now, all our PhD students in a University of Engineering have a background that is definitely sufficient for this course. It is an obligatory course for everybody. So we have a training program for our PhD students that has 3 parts: an obligatory part, a general part. In obligatory is also an ethics course, for example, a general part that is for, let's say, the whole university, and a more specific part that is related to the disciplines. And these three things together contain some obligatory courses. There's one at the very end, for example, to help the PhD students to look to the world. What can they do? What types of jobs are there? And to help them to make the next step.
Thank you. Thank you, Ignacio. So, Karel, I hope you can remain also for the panel, because I think there are some other questions, and there is also one other question of Anne Serrer. We will take this, but keep it short, please, Anne. Anne?
Anne? You are muted, Anne. It's not working.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yes, thank you so much for this very informative presentation. I am curious about the underlying ideology. If data stewards, for example, are trained in open source tools for building their infrastructures.
Yes, they are. But the training of data stewards is very rudimentary. When I became Rector Magnificus of the Delft University in 2010, I immediately started introducing 8 data stewards, 1 per faculty, with the aim to have 38 data stewards in the university, 1 per department. But there was no training. All these data stewards that came in had a PhD in a domain relevant, and nowadays we're building up this training in the country, in Europe, for data stewards. So it will be a profession. And in our country, this profession is recognized. So in the scheme of professions in the university, like an assistant, an associate, or a full professor, PhD students, postdoc, there are also data stewards of different levels in the governmental or countrywide system for people working at universities and at research institutes. So yes, they are trained in this.
Okay.
Thank you.
For the question, thank you for the answer. So we will move to the next speaker. So then I will introduce the next speaker. It's Gilard Vincian. She is from the European University Association. Hope you're online. Please introduce yourself, and we can go on with your talk then.
Thank you. Good morning. I hope you hear me well. And I'll share
yes,
my
we
screen.
hear you.
Perfect. I'll share my screen now. And you just have to tell me if you see the presentation full mode. I cannot see.
No, this is presenters mode.
Yeah, okay, that's what so I just swap. So this should go
Perfect.
now. This should work. Okay, good. Thank you. So thank you for the kind invitation. It's difficult to present what I will present after the presentation at TU Delft, but I think it's important also to have like an idea of an overview of the research data practices in universities in Europe, because obviously the landscape is quite diverse. My name is Vinciane Gaillard. I'm Deputy Director for Research and Innovation at EUA, the European University Association. We are the voice of universities in Europe with more than 850 members in 51 countries. And the specificity of EUA is among our members, we also have 34 national rectors conferences. So that would be CRUE in Spain. So the topic of open science is close to the heart of EUA. We've been active in this field ever since 2014. One thing that is very specific to EUA is our survey gathering, and I will present results of the latest open science survey. Importantly, we take a holistic approach to open science here, in line with the UNESCO recommendation on open science, which means that it's like an inclusive construct combining various movements and practices to make multilingual knowledge openly available. We have prepared a Open Science Agenda 2025, where we outline 3 priority areas. And well, the first one is related to open access. The second one relates to fair research data, and the third one to research assessment. And obviously, I will connect this in a minute. So if we focus on the second priority, the vision is that by 2025, Europe's universities will be part of a scholarly ecosystem where you will have fair research data as the norm. We will have new professional profiles for data-intensive careers and an active engagement in EOSC. And the idea is to get to those challenges. The thing is that the idea is that those 3, let's say, priorities or in the vision were outlined by the challenges that were highlighted from our survey on open science. The latest survey on open science from EUA dates back from July 2021, and then in winter 2022, we published a series of 3 follow-up reports to that survey, focusing on each of the 3 priorities. And so here I will focus on the data from the on research data. Okay, I cannot get to the next one. Yes. So as I said, follow-up reports. In total, we had 272 valid responses from universities in 36 European countries. And in this survey report, we focus on research data practices in general, not just fair data management. And we understand research data as a set of information, knowledge and results generated by and which at the same time support research projects in different scientific fields. We have identified 4 recommendations that I will present, supported by the results of the survey. First recommendation, universities should develop measures to support the implementation of research data practices at institutional level. So the idea is to ensure the compliance by the community with institutional policy objectives. But for that, we need the right infrastructure and the skills. And obviously, there's the link with research assessment and academic assessment. So if we go to this one, which is one of the major results we have in this survey, it's in a nutshell, what you see in this kind of radar visual is the strategic importance level in light blue and the level of implementation, dark blue, as assessed by respondents with regards to different dimensions of open science. If we look at the right part of the chart, where you have research data management, fair data, and data sharing, what you see is what we have called this implementation gap. So you see that universities consider that these are important elements, very important or highly important, but at the same time, they acknowledge that there is a lack of implementation. And so this came to, led us to say that support measures are needed to ensure this compliance. And importantly, what is important is this research assessment. So at the moment, and you will know that researchers still consider that this is an extra burden to handle their data, and they don't really see that it helps promoting the integrity and the visibility of their work. So we need to have more responsible, more comprehensive assessment systems. This is related to everything related to QARA. When we go to the second recommendation, so it is investing in research data infrastructure at institutional level and explore opportunities to engage with EOSC. So the idea is to secure the presence of infrastructures at institutional level to address the needs of the different disciplines. I would say it's institutional level, but it can be shared also with others. I'll get there. And the important is to get support to facilitate university engagement with EOSC. What we can see from, again, the data from this open science survey here is that if you connect, when it comes to data storage, data repository, and DMP tool, the type of research data infrastructure that are available at universities, if you combine the internal ones, the external, the share, and the combination of everything, you have like a total of between 70% and 82% of provisions by universities. So this is quite good, let's say. But the landscape is obviously very diverse. So not all universities are as advanced as the universities in the Netherlands. But what is important is that developing new and or enhancing existing infrastructure or linking with others, it is ranked very highly in terms of institutional actors in to support the transition. The attention should be placed on fostering university engagement with EOSC. The idea is that universities are key enablers and major beneficiaries of the EOSC rollout. And what was interesting is that at the time of the data collection, universities were largely aware of those benefits, but they were still considering and deciding whether they would link their infrastructure to the EOSC ecosystem. Turning to the third recommendation, so it is about dedicated, well, this is really connected to the previous presentation, dedicated research data support services and specific data support roles. So fair research data management, fair and care actually, research data management should be considered as a responsibility on its own, with dedicated support structures and staff in order to enable a truly research data culture at institutional level. What we see there is that 51% of our respondents said that they had dedicated research data support services, while 43% said they did not. Importantly, it doesn't mean that for the 43%, it doesn't mean that they don't have anything in place. It's they did not have anything that is dedicated. And here we understand that there are services that are predominantly focused on providing support and guidance for research data related activities. So we'll see that there is something there that is presented. What is important here is the availability of staff with the right technical expertise to support the implementation. So what we see is that this is maybe something that would be of concern. And if I turn here to the next one, so on the left-hand side, figure number 7, you have a further breakdown of the ones that, the 51%, the ones that have dedicated research data support services. And you see that many of them, like the vast majority, 94%, have it organized at institutional or university level. The ones that, as I said, do not provide, the 42%, you have them organized non-exclusively, so it is kind of on top of existing services. It is at institutional or university level for 55%, and then you go directly to the research unit level, which is interesting because it's not the case for the other ones. So those responsibilities, they fall onto existing member staff. And they are generally librarians, IT experts, and research administrators. The problem is that in the absence of adequate first upskilling and reskilling opportunities, they may not be able to offer researchers the right support and guidance. Further down here, you can see that then it's not about the services, but really the research data support staff at institutional level. And here you have where it is organized, so at library level, institutional level, or not at all, 32%, at least not yet when we collected the data. But you can see that if you have them, the hired profiles include, well, data stewards, research data officers or managers, data administrators, open science coordinators, and open science policy officers. So it's important to obviously know that universities will increasingly be asked to invest in research data expertise. But of course, the problem is that there is at the moment an absence of a shared recognition and definition of data professional profiles. It is recognized as such, at least data stewards in the Netherlands, but it's not the case everywhere. On the bright side, there are recent developments that are positive at the level of the European level, with ERA Action 17 in particular on project management, but I think it connects also to ERA Action 3 on the reform of research assessment and ERA Action 4 on research careers. So things are moving. I turn now to the final recommendation. Universities should look for sustainable funding sources to cover the costs related to research data management. So that includes national support, because national bodies more and more so require universities to practice fair research data management. Here you have in this table a kind of breakout of the sources of funding, and you see that it's basically these were multiple answers possible, so most of the time it's a mix, but institutional budget is quite important here, coupled with regional and national funding or funding from projects, etc. Very little good that it was the case that the costs are borne by individual research teams or researchers, and the ones that mentioned that said that, well, they intended not to have that in the future. So what is important is that it's a mix, but sustainability remains a big issue and a big concern for universities. So this is especially true for those universities that cannot rely on funding streams entirely dedicated to research data. So yeah, this responsibility for the sustainability, the financial sustainability, is a shared responsibility. So universities can play their part, but well, they cannot do everything. So there you need to connect with national open science strategies, and national funders should also kind of contribute here. And I think I will stop here. And I thank you for your attention. Stop sharing, and here we go. I cannot hear you.
Vincent, maybe you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for this also very interesting presentation. A lot of numbers, but to give good insight what is happening, and happily that your association is there just to keep us in mind how important also all those figures, numbers, monitoring, everything is it, and also it's about pushing. I will say what I remember is pushing also national funding organizations to make the data stewards curricula as sustainable as possible. And it's not coming from somewhere else. I think national funding is really important. Thank you, Vincent. Happy to take the questions. If there are questions in the room. Not for the moment. Any questions for Vincent in the chat?
I don't see any. No, no, I can. No.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Vincent. I will close your session now. Just remain with us for the panel, because I think we still have some questions later on, and there are some general questions also for all panelists. Okay, thank you, Vincent. So now to go on, I think we were running a bit late. So the next speaker is Nuria, but I think that she will agree just to.
Sorry, next is.
Oh, okay, Helen. Sorry. I just had too much messages at the same time in private chat. So Helen is still there. So sorry for this. So Helen, wait, because I was already in a mindset of break. Okay, that's good. Helen, you will come now. You are present, so I'm happy to see you live. You will talk about the task force, the e-IRG Association task force, and you are co-chair of that task force. So I think you have a primary view on digital skills.
Just here.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Great to be keeping you from your break. So I'll try and be quick. In terms of the presentation today, many thanks for the invitation to speak here. It is a privilege to be able to speak to this group. I do know some of you, but to give a little bit more of my background, I work for JISC in the UK. The UK's NREN, and I've done so for most of my career. So I have over 25 years working in training and design and delivery. I contributed to a lot of national programmes, and I'm currently working with the GÉANT Learning and Development team to review their learning and e-learning strategies. I'm also co-chair of the Upskilling Countries to Engage in e-IRG Task Force, which is why I've been invited here today. However, I will actually be speaking more broadly because there are many other task forces that also are relevant to the conversations today. This has been a very difficult presentation to prepare because of the time constraints, and I'm not familiar with this audience, and there's also quite a lot of activities to cover. So I'm aware that there are several EOSC representatives and task force members in the audience, so please do correct me if I misrepresent anything that is said. I did attend yesterday, so I'm very, very much looking forward to an open and honest discussion around skills. I did put some slides in for background, which I think I can skip through fairly quickly. The need for data skills, and we've discussed several times, as well as data skills, we've also got the skills around artificial intelligence. But one thing I do want to just stop and pause before we go into the details of the task forces is just to think about this model of change that some of you may have seen produced by Brian Nozick at the Centre for Open Science. So we are working towards culture change, and skills are part of that. And I find this particular model, I've seen it used in several places recently, but it's good for enabling different stakeholders to reflect on their role in the process. So obviously within e-infrastructures, there's an essential role around making it possible and making it easy. But also training also fits in those bottom layers. I'm not going to say anything at all about EOSC, to assume that we all know that EOSC is a web of fair data and services. But I will say a little bit more about the detail of what EOSC is trying to achieve. And you may know it's guided by the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, which has more detailed multi-annual roadmaps. So these are the three overarching objectives of the SRIA. What I'll be talking about mainly today involves the first objective, but I think that we do touch also upon the others in terms of standards to share resources and federation. In terms of more detail, there are different priorities, and you can see the priority areas for skills and training. So it very much aligns with some of the previous talks we've had today, looking at developing the next generation of open science and data professionals, bridging an education gap, building a trusted and long-lasting knowledge hub, influencing open science policy. So what I'll be talking about is how the task forces are working towards these objectives. So in terms of the EOSC task forces, they are made up of over 400 volunteers and described as the brain pool of the EOSC Association. These 13 task forces on the slide there have been running since 2001, and they actually finished their term at the end of December 2023. So there's a couple of points to note there. One is that obviously I'll be going through what the task forces aim to do. Things change, and some task forces were overtaken by events. But also, as they're coming to an end, there are a lot of outputs in the pipeline currently being reviewed, which I will mention, but they're not currently available, so we can share those in future. But as you can see, there's a set of task forces around research, careers and curricula, which is why it didn't make sense for me just to talk about the Upskilling Countries Task Force today. And as a result of that, I would like to thank very much the other task force chairs who have supported me and given me some information for the session today. In terms of just a broad overview, to put the task forces in the wider context of EOSC activities, I put this timeline together for an event last year, and I thought it would be useful here. It just highlights different strands of work in EOSC around skills and training. And some of these strands revolve around projects. So we have a set of regional projects, and below the regional projects, which you can't quite see necessarily, is certainly in the room, we have cluster projects. So those thematic projects like EOSC Life, PANOSC and others. So there are all of these projects and are working on different training strands. We have EOSC Future finishing up pretty much now, and then we've got a new round of projects, and this isn't exhaustive. I should say there are a lot of projects, but going along the top there we have that pink bar, which are the working group and task forces. So The original Skills and Training Working Group fed into the first draft of the SRIA, so those objectives would have come from there. And currently we have the task forces which are built and categorised by the advisory groups, which I mentioned earlier. So I've actually been involved in EOSC since 2019. So I was involved in the EOSC Synergy project, first of all, with Ignacio, and I see Herman's online as well. And I'm also involved in EOSC Future. I had a small role in the Skills and Training Working Group, and I'm now a task force chair, so been around a little while. This slide here, again, this is another of my slides just trying to make sense of the landscape. It's trying to simplify the range of different activities covered. So again, it's not exhaustive. Just looking at different areas such as frameworks and curricula to guide development, resources and metadata for the actual sharing of individual resources and how we can improve that. Platforms to share the resources, but also learning tools to actually deliver training. And then a set of activities around actually doing the training and sharing the good practice in delivering training. So many of the activities of the task forces will revolve around these themes as well. So to give an overview of the different task forces, as I say, I'll start with the one that I'm the co-chair for. We have actually 4 co-chairs. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Bernd, who's in the room. He is also on our task force and did some great work in terms of leading tasks and writing our final report. But the objectives there on the side, so we're aiming to align and support existing EOSC initiatives on a national and domain basis. So when we say upskilling here, what we're talking about is upskilling countries. So that's different to upskilling individuals. And our focus is not necessarily around just skills. It's about whatever is needed within that country to engage in EOSC. So it could be awareness raising, it could be infrastructure. And our focus really was on exchanging good practice and exchanging ideas about how we in our different countries and domains were trying to promote EOSC. So we were very much a sort of bottom-up reflection of what was going on at the board level and the member state level with the representatives in the mandated organisations. We had regular meetings, we shared, and it was great to see ideas actually being taken from one country to the next in the lifespan of the task force. We had a focus towards the end in terms of widening participation countries. So we had a set of activities there, and we produced what's called a mini-MAR, so a mini roadmap for those countries. Our findings were that context does matter, flexibility and adaptability and collaboration are key. So while we can come up with these standard frameworks, we do need to build in that flexibility so they can be adapted at a country or domain level. Another of the relevant groups was around researcher engagement and adoption. So trying to improve uptake and understanding of EOSC in that respect. They looked at 3 different areas: institutional and national, and also thematic. However, again, they did find, I think, in the lifespan, this was quite broad. So while engagement of all of these stakeholders is crucial, there needs to be a focus, and their recommendations fed into the EOSC Association, which is having an increasing focus, particularly on research performing organisations in EOSC over the next year. So, and I think we have Nadia, I think, is online from that particular task force, so you might be able to add some extra information. The Researcher Careers Recognition and Credit Task Force, I'm pleased that Vinciane mentioned the link through to recognition and credit and reward. Equally, it is there on the model of change. So this particular task force was, again, quite broad, looking for the role that EOSC could play in terms of adding value. And I think it was overtaken somewhat by events, because research assessment suddenly seems to be everywhere. And obviously the Quora initiative took off, the Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment, in the timeframe of the task force. So in terms of what their main activity was, it was to provide recommendations to the board, and they have produced a position paper which will shortly be published. And they have helped in defining that role for EOSC. and also are planning a workshop hopefully in the spring. The data stewardship, I think Carol in his talk mentioned some of the activities, so I won't need to say too much, but again, they were really focusing on data stewardship, curricula and career paths, looking at some standard approaches that can be shared. And again, aligning very much with existing activities. So they have two very useful outputs coming up shortly, one on career paths, one on curricula, where they really have spent a lot of time gathering information from members to give a good picture of the state of play in different countries, in different domains, and indeed in different institutions. So if you're wanting lots of case studies to complement the TU Delft example earlier, then they will be in these outputs coming out shortly. The task force is finishing, and again, looking to the future, we are looking to align with existing activities. So it is likely that the activities will join up with the Research Data Alliance and their special interest group around professionalizing data stewardship. To wrap up, I'm not going to say too much about the projects, but obviously a lot of the task force work, it needs to be handed over to the projects and will continue within the projects. There are three main projects on the slide there, but there are many more. I know Skills for EOSC, I think Carol already mentioned the data stewardship curricula. They're also producing a registry of data management training and doing a lot of work around competence centers, which, interesting, not only just covers data, but also they're looking at AI and HPC competence centers as well. So it's worth looking out for what they're doing. GraspOS is particularly focusing on the reward recognition tools, and Fair Impact looking at fair enabling practices, but they do have Fair Champions training and community as well. So just to finish up, I think I've mentioned this all needs to align, and I think that, you know, this SRIA and the MARS are collaborative documents that the task forces provide impact towards, and the projects work actively on their activities as well. So we do need to make sure these are aligned, and in January, at the end of January, early February, there is a winter school in Greece, bringing together the task forces and various active projects to try and hand over our outputs and provide some project coordination. There are different strands, if you can read sideways. The key sort of opportunity areas include number 5, which is skills, training, rewards, recognition, and upscaling. And I'm actually on the program committee for that. So if anybody's interested in finding out a bit more about what we're planning or wants some input, then please do let me know. So in conclusion, yeah, I think it's just to say that EOSC is supporting that development of skills, reward recognition and upscaling throughout Europe. We're very much guided by the SRIA and MAR, which there are many opportunities to provide input towards, particularly through the task forces. And I think it's important to emphasize we aim to complement existing activities and not duplicate. So when some of these task forces, they have come to an end and acknowledge that the activities will carry on through initiatives like Coara or other groups. And throughout the whole, there are many partners from e-infrastructures involved and playing an integral role. So that's everything.
Helen, thank you for this introductory talk. It's just interesting to see also the realization of all those task forces. I think this merits also a very big congratulations of my part, also all the work that has come out. So I think that this could influence also the common thinking about digital skills upscaling. So thank you very much for this work that you've done. We have some questions. And so in the room, I don't know if we don't have a mic, but because if we don't have a mic, nobody will hear. So can you present yourself and ask your question?
Okay, Katrin Stuber from Gern. Helen, many thanks for that. I have actually 2 questions. The first one is the more important one. To what extent do you see what you learn in all these task forces actually influence the way you look at recruitment in JISC? So are you looking at specific data skills job also for JISC as, you know, the British NREN? So that would be one question I have. And the second one is on the more specific on the winter school. And maybe that's something that, as Bob's not in the room, I think maybe Karel can also answer. To what extent is that winter school open? I had understood it was for project participants and maybe for the task force least, but it now seems to be more open than that. So if that could be clarified.
Okay, I'll take the first question around the skills within JISC. It's interesting to know JISC is an evolving organisation, as many are, and we have over the years very recently had several mergers with other organisations, and to a certain extent we've actually brought that skill set into the organisation. So for example, the most recent with the Higher Education Statistic Agency, HESA, and we've had other data-driven services brought in. So we actually do have now a data analytics directorate. So you do see a lot of posts that they've come in, but also recruiting more to those particular roles.
Okay, thank you. About the second question, I think Karel.
Yeah, well, the winter school, Catherine, is on invitation only. It was a creation by the coming together of projects in June of this year, and especially the technical projects wanted to interact more closely. So then we came up with this suggestion of a winter school. So the projects can bring whomever they think are relevant in. The board members are invited, and all the co-chairs of all the task forces that are relevant for this domain have gotten an invitation. There are a few other people that have specifically been invited, but it's on invitation only, and we already have a pretty large group.
Okay, thank you, Karel. Somebody else? Questions?
I have a question for Elena. I'm Tiziana Ferrari from e-IRG Foundation, and the question is specifically in the context of skills for EOSC. Let's say how skills and expertise is being managed or will be managed in EOSC. One area that I personally believe that based on the projects we've been participating in, which could deserve more attention in the future, is setting up at EOSC level structures that will support scientists in meeting the data stewards and the experts that participate in EOSC as providers and data holders. As we still see a lot of need from end users to be supported technically in making active usage of what is being federated at EOSC level. And this is a key asset because many users lack the skills, so we can promote or federate the discovery, but then if we don't have structured technical support networks that bring the providers, the holders, and support the active usage and adoption in research projects, then there is a risk that the final mile is not covered because users want to know how to access the expertise needed to really deploy those assets in their research projects. So this is perhaps more a comment than a question. It's a plea that for the future, there is also some approach to this need, as many projects are dealing with this a bit in silos, and having an organic structured approach at EOSC level would be important. So it's essentially how we can upskill the researchers that will be engaged in the projects to make active usage of what we see being federated and provided and developed in EOSC collaborations. I don't know if you have an opinion, maybe
I agree with you.
Some of the projects are already, you've mentioned, are already tackling this, so I would be also interested in having your view on this, and if there are projects which are already dealing with this. Thanks.
I think a lot of the projects we're focusing, I'm trying to think about the projects. I mean, I'm involved in EOSC Future, and we had a set of pilot projects in one of the work packages, which are actually producing the services, so the researchers within those services. And the training work package did work with them to try and provide training but it was really more about producing their own training resources. I'm trying to think if I'm not sure I'm quite understanding exactly where you're coming from, but I think there's quite an acknowledgement that intermediaries are key in the whole process. So there are various different types of intermediaries that have been defined, and how we bring those together, those intermediaries, I think is quite complex, and it probably differs at every institution. So I think it's quite hard to have a strategy that will meet every case. Yeah. Yeah.
In some of the cluster projects, there is already a practice established, which, as far as I know, has been successful, which is about bringing the research infrastructures that belong to a given domain, having open calls where access to their data and assets is being promoted, and then the clusters organize at cluster level and mobilize the experts from their research infrastructures to support the projects that would want to use this data and services that the research infrastructures bring together.
Yeah.
So that is an example of coordinated approach in supporting exploitation and secondary use of data and services which are coming from the research infrastructures. So I'm just bringing this as an example for possible exploration, having something like this, and now broadened a little bit beyond what the clusters have been doing, for example, would be perhaps an approach also to strengthen the connection with the end user.
Yeah,
and perhaps an idea also for the future winter schools, where there is more user-centric approach, where really scientific communities are invited.
Yeah, I'm clearer now. Yeah, I think that's really important, because one of the points I wanted to make here is I think previously a lot of projects and initiatives that have gone as far as training. We produce resources and we put them on a website, and it doesn't get much further than that. So the e-IRG Synergy project, I was really pleased to be involved in that, because it was about producing content, but a key part of it was actually taking that content and using it within organizations, within our partner consortia, institutions and programs. So we did actually get some examples and get feedback on our resources as well. So I think the examples may be there, but it's probably worth sort of gathering them to share, I think, and like you say, emphasizing that this needs to happen more.
Okay. Thank you, Helen. Sorry to interrupt now. All questions, because we are running completely late. So no questions for the moment. It can be in the panel, because I think also we have still 3 speakers. And I think also the people in this room are eagerly looking for a coffee. So, but it will be a speed coffee. So that means that I think 10 minutes, 15 minutes. 15 minutes. 15 minutes, and then we are back. Yeah, just inside, by the way, because no. think we have to go a little bit further.
Yeah.
Than 12:30.
Yeah. I already. What is this your screen? Was okay. Nuria, can you check if you can share your screen? So you're next.
Nuria. Okay, we're back. I think the break here is over. I hope for the remote participants also. Hope you could grab also something to eat because the session is not finished yet. So we still have 3 speakers, and there will be, I hope so, still some panel questions. So at least I hope that we can go on until noon and 45 minutes. But before that we go on with the panel, of course, we will look into I will say the brains of the next 3 speakers, and the first one is Nuria. Nuria, can you present yourself and begin your presentation?
Yeah, sure. I am already sharing my screen, but can you confirm that is everything okay?
We can see it, but not in presenting mode, Nuria.
Okay, this is what I was thinking. Okay.
You
Now
have
it's
to.
better.
Yeah, now it's perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you very much for the invitation. This is a very interesting workshop, and I think I will learn a lot from all of you. My name is Nuria Benítez Monforte. I work at the Catalan Institute of Nanoscience and Nanotechnology at the strategy development team. I am the person chairing the Open Science Committee at the Institute, and I am also the data management advisor that we have at the Institute. And I am here not representing only my organization, but SOMA Alliance, where I am also chairing the Open Science Working Group of the Alliance. So I maybe can start because I will just start explaining what SOMA is at a national level. So SOMA is the alliance of all Severo Ochoa and Maria de Maeztu centers and units in Spain. This is a program with a philosophy to boost and bring to another level the greatest research organizations or units in Spain with some objectives. So improve the capacity of the organizations, improve their capacity to attract talent and retain it, to improve their capacities to reach broader communities, and to create new partnerships and internationalize their activities. So what is SOMA? SOMA is the alliance of all these organizations. These organizations were recognized with more prestigious accreditation of quality in research in Spain. And we decided to join forces to find better ways to improve our activities. The Alliance was born back in 2017 by all the units and centers recognized by this accreditation. And the mission is to internationally promote and strengthen and maximize the value of the groundbreaking research that is produced under these units and centers. So this is an image of what SOMA is nowadays. We are 62 members from research organizations and units from universities. We are distributed mostly around the Spanish geography, but very located in Catalonia and the Madrid regions, but also in some others, especially País Vasco or the Valencian community, where you are hosting this event today. So within this alliance, we created this Open Science Working Group back in 2018. And the aim of this working group is to follow up open science activities among all the SOMA members, but also to find ways to join efforts and to find synergies to improve our capacities more than what we would be able to do individually per organizations. Because one of the characteristics of these units and centers recognized is that some of us are not within universities umbrellas or within the CSIC umbrella, that is the greatest research organization in Spain, with more than 100 research centers in the country. Within this, one of the greatest achievements of the working group was that we were invited to participate in the writing of the national open science strategy in Spain. And we were able to add some insights of in this strategy, such as specific needs for organizations like ours regarding open science, and very specifically regarding data management. Also, as a request of the EOSC representative, Spanish representative, so Ignacio here, we ran a survey among our members. It was answered by 54 members out of the members that we were at the moment. So it was a very good representation. And some answers is that only 33 of them had a data management policy in place. And from them, 30 had a policy that included open data management. And the same number included the FAIR principles for data management. Only 29 had a long preservation policy, and only 20 of them have a policy for open software. Finally, some more. So 31 had an open science training policy, and 39 recognized open access of results and open science-related results as their evaluation recognizing policy. So, as I said, the reality of the organizations that are members of SOMA is that most of them are not under the universities umbrella. Most of them are not under the CSIC umbrella. And as a whole, 40% of SOMA members are not under university or CSIC or both of them. So that means that 25 of our members, so 25 out of 62, had no access to the services provided by universities. I was very jealous seeing what Duty Delft presented as resources devoted to data management and to support researchers doing this data management. This is not the case in Spain for most of universities, of course, but for those members that are really not under this umbrella, the case is even worse. So this means that these 25 members do not have access to transformative agreements for publications, for example, but that need to create a specific agreements or their own resources for example, public repositories or a specific data management resources. So what are we looking to EOSC in terms of our organization to improve our capacity on provide services on data management? So we need to better understand the existing infrastructures in research data management. And when we think about infrastructures, we are not just thinking about repositories, but also to this kind of training structures like EOSC is providing. So these training structures and these scalable resources. Also in terms of recognizing professionals in our organizations doing these duties. So what we are really looking at is to some kind of infrastructure that can help our organizations to select data related professionals, to being able to hire the needed people to help and to support our researchers on create fair data and to provide data management services. So finally, also to, as I said, to find the correct training, not only for our researchers, but for our research support professionals. We are also I think it was Helen that mentioned it. We are very much looking at Action 17 to find a better way to recognize and to select research support professionals, but also to other actions that can maybe help us on this. And I think this is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Nuria. Very interesting presentation. Also, we have a lot of numbers. I retain one of the numbers that's specific to my heart is the long-term data preservation. I'm one of the long-term data preservation specialists in Belgium, and I can tell you 25% is already a lot of the institutions. So I still put it on the agenda because it needs a lot of money, and you need the digital skills also to be involved and to be aware about long-term data preservation, also the curation. Thank you, Nuria. I don't know if there are questions in the chat or in the room, but I want to keep them from the panel if this is okay. So I will go on immediately with the next speaker. And so I will present live here Ines Vodopives. The next two speakers are speaking about the national case. So Ines is Deputy Director from NUK. It's the National Library and University Library of Slovenia. And I think you can begin with your presentation if everything is ready. I will slow down a little bit. So we can tell a joke in between.
I think it's okay.
So I think the PowerPoint is nearly ready. And if then present yourself and also your presentation, because I know you have a challenging presentation. It's a live presentation somewhere. So thank you for this and hope everything is going well.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, well, it's nice to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me to having me here. I think you already mentioned where I come from, so I won't repeat that. Maybe I would just add that I'm also member of the management board of the Institute for Information Technology from Slovenia and a member of UNESCO Memory of the World National Committee. I'm also a researcher. I've been working as a deputy director in the National Library from 2020. Before I was dean of the Faculty for Slovenian and International Studies at university, and I also lecture a little bit still, though there is not enough time for that. I will go on with my presentation. I'll try to talk as fast as I can because we're late, but still hopefully not too long. I'm starting today's presentation with the famous citation of Albert Einstein on libraries. Why? Because libraries were, and I think still are in some part, understood as spaces, like physical spaces, and of course, hubs of culture and knowledge. But of course, with fast developing digital environment, infrastructures, open science, AI, etc., they're actually transferring into something different. And they are even more than a decade faced with existential crisis and worried about their future and what their role will be in our society, in science, in culture, etc. This issue was very much present also in this year's IFLA conference in Rotterdam, where the majority of presentations were oriented in discussions on whether AI is to be our partner or our rival. So I think this presentation today is, of course, about libraries, but it's also about what will be our strategic role further on in specific science if we talk about this today. As stated by Carol from the European Commission Library, librarians were always getting order into data. It doesn't matter if we talk about medieval manuscripts or we talk about scientific database of research data. Librarians are skilled to work with data. So for this reason, I'll try to present what we have done in Slovenia and build on this statement in library-oriented education to support e-infrastructures, data management, data science, open science, and how is actually built in our environment in Slovenia today. As representative of a national and university library, I have at the same time both perspectives. So the overall strategy and overview of the national librarian system, as well as the scientific component of such support and such system. According to the Slovenian Librarianship Act, our National Library is responsible for larger part of education for the librarian professionals. We are also the main contact point over more than a decade for open science, and we are dealing with e-resources, APCs, research projects, infrastructures, etc. And now we have also developed a specific national model for educational support for professionals working in the field, besides other also support related to open science.
It's just the cable that...
Okay, I will stop. Yeah.
think I have another one.
Okay.
For the people in remote, it's just a local problem.
Do they see it?
Don't think so.
No.
No, I think that they see it. No, it's
Online, it's not.
Online is
just
all fine.
no problem.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry for
okay,
this.
it's coming back, the presentation. Okay.
Okay. I will try to go forward. Huh?
Yeah. Okay. Just to check if everybody's hearing well. Right?
Yeah. Do you hear me? Everybody's yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
perfect.
So we have developed a national model to support professionals that work in open science and no, it's not working. Maybe, yeah. Sorry for this.
Yeah, on distance, everything is fine. It's
Yeah.
just a real local problem. The people here in the room do not see anything
Well,
except us.
I could proceed.
Just to be sure, not worried. Cable.
Okay. Yeah. No. Okay, librarian is not so interesting for the public, so I can stop.
Go back. Maybe it's not a question.
Okay.
Now it's coming. No?
Yeah, you
We have it here.
wait a
We have
bit.
to wait a second.
Wait, yeah.
Okay.
Here we go.
We have, yeah. We have an image. Okay. Please,
Okay.
Ines,
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So before we I talk a little bit more about this educational model that we have, I would like to very shortly present you how our Slovenian infrastructure for open science works at the moment. So no. Okay, I will use these ones.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. So the backbone of all the system is, of course, Union Catalog developed by the Institute of Information Science, which also hosts the HPC. Is it HPC? HPC, okay. And this system is used by all the libraries in Slovenia. That means that no other system or catalog is implemented in libraries. All national, public, universities, special libraries, all the libraries use the same system. And of course, they're all working on the same metadata model. This allows us to provide quality check and PIDs for each entity in the system. And that's together more than 900 libraries at the moment. This common national system is further connected to databases and services of open science. What is more, in 2022, we also gained political commitments and funding. It was already mentioned today as a very promising and very helpful tool to have funding. To develop the open science further, integrating it into international environment and connecting dots of e-IRG, e-infrastructures such as ERIS, Clarin, and even develop our own collaborative cloud for cultural heritage and heritage science, parallel to ECCCH. I don't know how to spell that in English or whatever. So European Collaborative Cloud. Okay. If I go just quickly to most important features of this open science infrastructure, I would first say a few words about our CRIS node. It's a support to science and research in the way that it's an area where all the PIDs are connected from personal data of each researcher to research institution to area of scientific research, bibliography, scientific excellence, forms used for habilitation processes on the faculties, and even project applications as a kind of a result. This CRIS system also allows us national statistics of science and research in different fields and in different well, you can select different areas you want to have the statistics of. Then you have the Digital Library of Slovenia, which is developed by our library. And here all the Slovenian funded scientific publications are in open access, of course. And then you have the National Open Science Portal, which connects all repositories from all the universities and all private or other institutions that work in the science field in one huge open science system. So you have here with red, you cannot see it, but maybe we can then show it online. And of course, you have some special repositories such as ADP for research data deposit. Okay, this is all one big connected system on the national level. How does it work? Because it's one system, each entity in the system has its own PID. This is the ID here, which connects different databases in one common network. So here you have, I was looking for an article on Valencia, you know, to connect also the content. And you have here different metadata from different systems. You have here from the CRIS system, from the repository of University of Ljubljana, and from our National Open Science Portal, and from the researchers' bibliography, all connected with the same ID. So if we go back to the libraries, the question is, what is the role of the libraries here? The libraries are the ones that actually work in this system for all the time, for more than 30 years. So they're the one developing the metadata. They're the one working with the data, and they're the one that also develop the structures that are connected in the same system. So we have here I have here a few numbers, Chris. We have more than 550 employed librarians just in the libraries working in the science field. So that's university libraries, faculty libraries, and special libraries from the institutes, research institutes. And it's an interesting fact that only 5% of these librarians is younger than 35. This is the AI generated such librarian. So what does it tell us? The inflow of new staff, younger generations, is very low on one hand, but on the other, we have generations of skilled librarians who, you can say data managers, because they actually work in this old system, huge system, and who are in some way all the time working with open science, but of course would need some kind of additional training to gain knowledge necessary to update, to be up to date with all the developments, not only with open science, but also with artificial intelligence. And as Carol, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it was the second presentation today. Yeah, already said, we should build on existing knowledge, on existing capacities. Why? Because we need the sustainability. We need the process to go further, not to just think about new develops. Then, of course, after the projects, after some infrastructure stops working or whatever, it also, of course, there's no new income in the development of the knowledge. So if we want to efficiently address our national issues at the moment, but maybe that's also interesting in international environment, and provide this support of science also for the next 20 or 30 years. We should, of course, build, and we did that. We developed two bi-directional planning of education activities on the national level. Besides the studies that are, of course, on the faculty, we have two ways to provide new knowledge for the professionals working in libraries. On one side, we have a program for long-term professional development with 6 modules, which which adapts the needs of already employed librarians. This is stationed in our National Library. And on the other side, we have the project Spoznaj, which is supported by the new governmental funding and is focused on a smaller sample of new profiles, that's newcomers, younger generation, who will be trained to act as, of course, data managers, stewards, or whatever terminology we can use for that. So we will build on one part on the existing knowledge, and we will add new knowledge to the existing ones. I would not repeat what we have already heard also today in the second presentation, some of the areas of work, but maybe just some new aspects that are very important also to when dealing with the data is legal aspects, also insight into the infrastructures that support science, then of course data principles, and also open educational resources, for example. Okay, to conclude, this way we'll be able to develop sustainable, collaborative, and effective network of skilled professionals. And as I said, we can call them librarians, data stewards, data managers, or whatever. But it's important, not how we call them, but what they know and what can they do with the data further on. So I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ines. This is an interesting perspective because sometimes also in the research infrastructure and in the e-infrastructures world, I think we overlook sometimes the important role of the National Library, the research libraries, but they certainly for digital skills, I think they are really important. And it reminds me also to the Belgium's case, a lot of similarities. And I think in other countries, that will be also the same without maybe that we know this is busy. So it's always interesting to see on the national case also, the National Library is an important factor also for the digital skills. Thank you, Ines. Questions are for later. So I will introduce now, thank you, Ines. Okay, I will introduce you now the next speaker. It is Ignacy Lebastida Iguan. He will speak about the Spanish case.
Hello everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm going to share my presentation. My name is Ignacy Lebastida, and I work at the University of Barcelona. I'm the sorry, because I'm looking for the presentation. Not. I cannot share the presentation. I don't know why. Maybe you have it, Ignacio.
We can share it from this side.
Yes, please.
Give me 1 second to do it. So
meanwhile, I will present myself. I'm Ignacy Lebastida. I work at the University of Barcelona. I'm working in the library of doing the research support. I'm engaged in the Open Science group at the National Rectors Conference, and I'm also engaged in the creation of the national plan in Spain for open science that Nuria already mentioned. Since we are really late, I'm gonna start, and afterwards, when we have the presentation, we can follow it. What I wanted to show with you is the opportunities and the activities that we are now. Yes, we can move on of what's going on in Spain. We have the context, the international context that we already have been seeing today, the different declarations for many years, and that data is one of the fundamental part. If we go to the next one, the final goal, as we always hear, is the FAIR data, the principles, the famous European Open Science Cloud. But this is the international context. What is important is to look at the national context, what we have in Spain. And in the next slides, I will show you what is going on in Spain. The first thing is that we had a Spanish law of science back in 2011 that was requiring open access for publication. It has been a change last year in September 2022 when there were some slightly changes in the articles related to open access. It was changed to open science, and what is remarkable here is that there was a broaden on the scope of the requirement to share outputs. Before were only publications. Here, if we read the law, we already see that they are calling on sharing data among other outputs, also code, also methodologies, etc. And not sharing only in a repository, but also sharing openly. And this is a call not just for public sector researchers, also for the ones that are funded publicly. And this is important also to know. So at the same time that we are calling for publications, we call for data. And this is a change that now is affecting some of the activities that we are performing in universities and research centers. Also, as I said before, in the next slide, you'll see this new national strategy for open science. We've been working in this strategy for quite a few years, and finally, in last May, the government approved this national strategy for open science. There are many axes, many objectives. Here I just choose two objectives coming especially related on what we are talking today. The first is about infrastructures. One of the objectives of the Spanish government and through this national strategy is to ensure this existence of robust and well-articulated interoperable digital infrastructures. And of course, at the end, we want that these infrastructures will be integrated into this international ecosystem, including, where applicable, this European Open Science Cloud. So for that, it's important that if we want to build those infrastructures or we want to adapt those infrastructures into the international landscape, that we educate and we improve the skills of the people who is behind. And this is a second objective that we find in the national strategy, this promotion of the proper management of research data generated by the national system through the FAIR principles. These are the objectives, but also in the national strategy, we have actions. And if we move to the next slide, you'll see one action. I think it's the real one that is in the strategy, that is this creation, recognition, and promotion of professional profiles to support research data management. My colleague from Slovenia was explaining the role and the changes in the libraries. It's something that we also are seeing in our universities and in our research centers. But it's important to create these new profiles and also to acknowledge these new profiles. I work in the library, and I know that the library always say yes. You ask for anything and they will give you an answer. But we need also to find more people, to adapt the profiles, to update the skills of the people in the library. The library cannot do everything. So it's important to a partnership with technical people and to build new teams that are not yet in place. So the strategy looks for funds. They say that they will fund for among the research support personnel for special calls for creation of professional profiles, etc. So, and this is scheduled to be in short time. So probably in the next year we will begin to see that. And in fact, when I will share now some of the activities or actions that are already going on, you'll see that this is already a kind of reality. So next slide, please. And I'm going to share here some initiatives to show you what's going on in Spain in all this topic. Of course, the National Rectors Conference has this group on open science that is already doing a lot of things. For instance, there is a plan to build a Spanish platform called Plática that is going to try to join all the activities and to also provide facilities and tools to the Spanish research system. But since it's just a plan, I would like here to show you something that is already going on. In many institutions, in many research centers, and I think Nuria already mentioned, there are plans on open science. I share here a plan from the Technical University of Catalonia, member of CESAR, where they just approved this year a roadmap for 2025. And looking at the roadmap, we already see this idea, these goals of providing infrastructures and tools for managing research data, to provide advice and support to researchers for managing research data. Something that I think is important is to create this single contact point for research data, because sometimes we have a lot of systems, we have a lot of services, but researchers get a bit lost when they try to touch on the needed services they wanted. And what is very important is to offer these specific training activities on open science embedded already in the regular training programs for researchers and PhD students. This is something that has been going on in many universities and many research centers. We are training already researchers, we are training PhD students, but what is important, and is in the next slide, is that we train the trainers, because to train researchers first, probably we need to train the trainers. And this is an example that we are going on in Barcelona. This is the second edition of a post-degree course called Open Science Promotion, Support and Assessment. It's based in an idea from LIBER, this European Association for Research Libraries, that made a document on identifying open science skill for library staff and researchers. This post-degree course is aimed at people who plans to organize and update research support services according to open science, to design information campaigns and training activities addressed to researchers, to analyze the funders and research assessment requirements bound to open science, and also to provide support on development and implementation of open science policy. So the people who is attending these post-degree courses are not researchers, are the people that are doing this kind of work in the libraries, in the research centers, some of them in the SOMA centers that Nuria was showing to us before. So these people that is trying to acquire these new skills to support researchers in doing open science practices. And another example is the community of practice that we have here in Catalonia with the Catalan Open Research Area. The Catalan Open Research Area has many tools, but now we have an umbrella of all these activities. And one of the activities is the research data management. We are collaborating 34 universities and research centers, and for me, probably is the first initiative where research centers and universities are collaborating together. We are working together in a consortium data repository based on Dataverse. But the most important is not that we have this repository where we facilitate the deposit and the sharing of data, is that we have built this community of practice. We have been developing in the last years some training sessions, inviting people from all over the world. For instance, some data stewards from Delft were attending facilitating these training sessions. But also what is important is that we have exchanged best practices. We have self-learning sessions. Last week, we had the last one in this 2023, where the data stewards that are in these institutions share their practices, share their problems, explain what are the solutions, and together we are building this community. And the last example that I want to share with you is an example of how we are now getting these new profiles into the research support teams. This is a program funded with European funds that was starting last year, the Investigo program. It's a program funded by the European funds, but through the Spanish government, to enroll young people from 16 to 30 years old to develop support research task. And what is important, I wanted to show you here as an example, is that many institutions have decided that one of the roles that they wanted to put in this program is the role of analyzing and managing data. So for instance, my university and other universities in Spain, but also research centers in Spain, have decided that one of the positions that they wanted to include in this Investigo program was this one. So this shows the importance and that the universities and research centers in Spain are giving now to the research data management and the need to bring new skills and new profiles into the system. So just as a conclusion, I think that we have a good context and the environment is towards open science. So I think we are in the right moment to make this change. There are already many initiatives going on, but there is a lot to do. So we need to get ready for that. Thank you very much and open for discussion in the panel.
Thank you, Ignacy. It's very interesting perspective and complementing also the other speakers. So to proceed to the panel, I think I invite the people here present just to come in front. We don't have much time for panel questions. We had several questions, but I think one will be just one, because I think some people have also other meetings at 1 o'clock. So okay, yeah, open the cameras. Okay, so I will begin with one question. Rules of participation are very simple. Just one question, it's for everybody. So, but I already had my my question of Karel that he has to leave at 12 o'clock. So I leave him the floor also if he wants to answer for this question. Later, of course, everybody has an opinion, but just remotely raise your hands and then we will discuss. So we heard a lot of interesting presentations. So sometimes you were speaking about legal frameworks. So that means also that the legal framework is rather important also in the digital skills. But how important are those legal frameworks to incentivize the uptake of digital skills? So what do you think about the legal frameworks? Because now we are going for policy, and so maybe a legislator has to do something on the national field or on the European field. What are your opinions about the legal framework? And please don't speak about the AI Act, because this is a whole other session. So, Karel, I give you the floor.
Well, thank you, Chris. I, by coincidence, had an interview yesterday with a study on the legal frameworks of the European Commission on all the data acts, 7 or 9 of those, and they go in exactly the wrong direction, limiting the researchers to a large extent. Whether we need in Europe, or I don't think Europe can make that, to be honest. Europe is not in charge of the education in the different countries, but you could have national legal frameworks that would help in certain situations in order to make the next steps, because in some countries the regulations are rather top down, I would say, with respect to the education and the training that is needed for specific domains. As I said, in our country, we have taken into the framework of positions in universities also a special position for data stewards. If I remember correctly, there are 3 different levels of those and 3 different types. And yeah, that's not a legal framework, but that's a framework set up by the universities themselves with respect to what kind of jobs do we have in a university, and that leads to recognition in that case for data stewards, of course. That is another way where universities, if they at least agree on the different types of positions they have in a country, could jointly set up, without a legal framework coming from the government, such a system to, well, be rewarded and to be recognized for the work data stewards do, as an example.
Okay, thank you, Karel. Very interesting for beginning. I will.
And I don't have to leave at 12, otherwise I would have been gone for a long time. I have to leave at 1. So, I'm joking.
Thank you, Karel, for your input. If you have to leave,
I will. Don't worry.
No problem. Ignacy, you were also speaking about the legal framework in Spain. Is there something else that you can say? You were in Spain. You were speaking about the open access legislation, but about digital skills, that's not in the national legislation. And Karel was mentioning it has to do somewhere with the national, because the European is not competent to do that.
Yes, in the legal framework in Spain, we have this kind of mandate that asks for sharing data. So it's somewhere a way of activating the need to build new skills on the people, because to know how to share it indirectly. But it's true, and I agree what Karel just said, that we need some changes in the recognition of these new profiles. So I think that's the most important. Maybe it's not a law, it's some kind of regulations, but to have this kind of profiles in the universities and research centers, to be acknowledged and also to build a research career on that. So the people also could promote there. Also, there are suggestions on having, for instance, some training, kind of mandatory training in PhD studies or during some scientific degrees to learn on these new skills that before weren't in the studies plan. So it is kind of regulations that maybe are not laws, but somehow are kind of legal stuff could be implemented into the system.
Thank you, Ignacy. Vincian, you want to go on with that?
Yes, I think that what you just mentioned, Ignacy, corresponds to what is being discussed in the context of the Air Action 4. So there was a conference on research careers last week in Brussels, and Air Action 4 is on research careers. I will put in the chat the link to the Research Comp website where you have everything. So in a nutshell, it's been developed by the European Commission to have a framework of competences for researchers, and definitely data management there plays an important role, in addition to many different roles, to just kind of keep being like up to date with the way research is conducted nowadays. One thing that then comes as a reaction from, and that includes obviously doctoral education, doctoral schools, etc., is that we should not forget that doctoral training and doctoral education should be centered on research mostly. And so if you see the visual of the research comp, you will see that you don't have that as like the core node in terms of competence. It is one of the nodes, including like as almost like as any other. And so many, actually including EUE, would have rather had research-based training or research-focused training as the center node, and then others as additions. But this is something that is being discussed now, and I will put that in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Vincian. People in the room? Okay, Helen.
Just referring to frameworks, legal or policy frameworks, just to refer back to the open science model of change. It was in my presentation. You know, it's there, it's at the top of the model, but it doesn't work without everything else that's underneath. So I think it is one of, you know, the frameworks are one of the mechanisms that can be used to drive change. But with any change, there needs to be some risks or consequences to those frameworks. And if there are no consequences, then behavior won't change. You just have to look at the accessibility regulations for web resources. You know, they're in UK regulations, they're in European, but most people don't check whether their web resources are accessible because there are very few consequences. And when there are consequences, for example, in the UK, when the open access mandates were brought in, it was about, it became a tick box exercise, really. You know, it portrayed open science as really something bureaucratic and nothing that had any benefits to researchers. So I think while frameworks have a place, they're just part of a whole range of interventions.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Yeah, Ines.
Thank you. Yeah. Hopefully hear me. So yeah, I would totally agree with Helen. Of course, if we can have regulations, but if they don't have any support in actual transfer into actual actions, then there's actually no result. But what we did in Slovenia, and I think it's, of course, this question is twofold: the acting on the national level and maybe also on the international. We implemented different formal ground for the development that I was presenting before. And the first one is, of course, Scientific Research and Innovation Activities Act, implemented in 2022. Then resolution on the Slovenian scientific research and innovation strategy until 2030, also in 2002. Then decree on the implementation of scientific research work in accordance with the principles of open science this year. And action plan for open science also this year, which provided us the funding for the implementation of what I was presenting before. So this is the national part. But of course, there are some interesting European Union also activities that on which we based and which could have some kind of a common ground for everybody. And here, of course, I'm referring to recommendations from the council. And although they're not, they don't oblige us to do something, sometimes they are the motivators of the so that the countries uptake some practices and work on some strategic fields that they need to cover. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. It's 1 o'clock, but I want to terminate with just a really light question. Everybody can answer, of course. So now we are busy with digital skills. So we have that topic, but do we cover all generations? Do we cover all generations with digital skills? Do we not generate a new gap in digital for the next generation? Because we were speaking about university, libraries, so the young people, they are coming. And then suddenly you have the old ones. We are the old ones. So that means that somewhere there is a lifelong learning, right? So we need some curriculum also for the older guys that wants to still be involved and not have a new digital skills, digital gap. So what do you think about that?
Maybe I can just because I was already presenting that, I can just uptake that. So yeah, as long as formal education, as long as programs that are that need some accreditation on university, on faculties, etc., of course the gap is becoming larger. Why? Because you need some time to implement new curricula, new contents for educational programs. That is why we implemented the bidirectional educational system, which provides us on one part to build bottom up and then also top down actions. On one side, we every year we make some pool on what libraries need, what researchers need, where are the gaps, and we can easily implement new content for the next year. So what I was showing you before was just the content for the 2024. 2025 will have something else, some new contents related to the skills that are needed on the field. And of course, on the other side, there's smaller projects for newcomers, for new generation. And they will be the ones that we also heard that today, that they're the ones that are then the centers for the education of the ones that work with researchers, so that they are the kind of providers of knowledge for other librarians or other people involved in open science in this area.
Okay, thank you, Ines. I will take just two other opinions of Ignacy and Nuria. First, Ignacy.
Yes, we fully agree on your comment, and we are aware of that, of this possible gap. So just to be short, we have done a couple of things. First is, for instance, when we ask for data management plan to our PhD students, we don't accept that unless the supervisor, and usually it's a senior, is engaged in that. So we are committed to have these two sides, the young and the senior, together. So we also are developing specific training for supervisors. And we mention a lot about the PhD training, but we also do the research training, and we ask supervisors to get engaged on that.
Ignacio, thank you. Nuria.
Yes, thank you. Very short. I haven't the occasion to answer your previous question. I think that in terms of regulation in Spain, we are lacking some positions, but also mostly that we have like very common boxes for all positions, and data stewards are nowadays within a common box of research support people that is too vague to have a specific training. And of course, in terms of research organizations, of small research organizations, we are pretty young organizations in most of cases. So we have mostly people not that old, but people from our age, that and this generational gap is already appearing, while we do not have anyone really specialized on that. So we need to train current people on a topic that is not already in the organization. So yes, is a very important gap there.
Nuria, thank you for your input. Hope that we will cover that gap. So I will now close this session. I want to thank Anders, Karel, Vincian, Ellen, Nuria, and Ines and Ignacy for your contribution, very valuable contribution. I think we have a lot of stuff to discuss later on. We will look at it also for next policy documents. And thank you very much for your participation in this session. And so I will close officially this session. Don't forget, there is also session 3 this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.